Hosted by you/practice complete 1. So, I, 50M, have 3 kids, Sarah, 35F, Jessica, 25F, and Ben, 23M. My wife and I had Sarah when we were both 16. It wasn't easy, but with the support of both our parents, we were able to finish college while raising her. When it was time for Sarah to go to college, we didn't have the money to help her, so she took out loans and paid for them herself. We learned from our mistakes and started saving for her siblings, Jessica and Ben, who each got around a $100K college fund and graduated debt-free. Through all of this, Sarah never complained. She finished her education, got a fantastic job, and managed to repay her loans in just 3 years while staying with us to save as much as possible. She also helped us a lot by babysitting her younger siblings and has always been selfless, helping out in any way she could, maybe even to a fault. When she told me 5 years ago that she was getting married, I talked to my wife and shared how bad I felt that we were never able to do anything significant for her. I wanted to give her the inheritance I received from my grandmother, about $50K, to help pay for her wedding and a down payment on a house. Luckily, my wife agreed, and although Sarah didn't really need the money, I know it meant a lot to her. The issue is this: Jessica is getting married next year and assumed we would give her a similar gift. She was quite surprised when I told her that we hadn't discussed such plans and, even if we wanted to, we didn't have the budget for it. She told us it wasn't fair that we paid for Sarah but wouldn't do the same for her. I tried to explain the situation, telling her that, in the long run, we spent twice as much on her and Ben as we ever did on Sarah. However, she insisted that Sarah was already well off, pointing out that Sarah and her husband had paid off their house and were doing extremely well financially. I told her this had nothing to do with how much money her sister had. It was about finally being able to do something for our oldest child, who had sacrificed so much because we had her at such a young age. She didn't take it well, left angry, and now won't speak to us. My wife thinks we should maybe take out a small loan and give Jessica the money because she isn't used to not talking to her kids and is upset about being left out of the wedding preparations. She's even afraid we might not be invited to the wedding. But I have put my foot down and won't budge because I don't think Jessica is entitled to our money. Now even Sarah is saying this is getting out of hand and has offered to pay half the money herself. Personally, though, I'm at a point where I'd rather burn the $50,000 than give it to Jessica. Sarah and my wife think this isn't worth destroying our family over, but I believe that giving in will only make Jessica more entitled in the long run. Up in the comments. About Sarah, I wanted to give her the money because I felt like a bad father. I thought about all the time we missed during her childhood and the less expensive presents she got compared to her siblings because we just didn't have the money. And yet, she never complained, never said how unfair it was, even though she deserved better. It's my apology to her for us being young and stupid and not being able to provide the childhood she deserved. About my wife, I think she is still a little traumatized and avoids conflict because of what happened to us when we were kids. Her parents threw her out and didn't speak to her for half a year, which had a profound impact on her. I think she's just scared of losing her daughter, like she thought she had lost her parents. Update 1 week later. Thank you all for the fantastic comments and personal messages regarding my last post. After reading them, I felt even more convinced that I was in the right, so I sat down with my wife to talk. Following many of your suggestions, I showed her the post and asked her to read it. She wasn't happy, especially when she saw how many people had read it, but she was also really curious. This has been on her mind a lot lately, and she wanted to know what all of you were thinking. She had a few issues with my comments. She believes that when I said I would rather burn the money, it indicates I need to change my approach to problem solving. While it might be easy for people on the internet to suggest that parents cut off contact with their child, she is not ready to lose her little girl. In addition to that, she thinks my statement about doing my duty and wanting to take care of myself comes across as selfish and is not something a parent should say. She believes there is a reasonable compromise. Instead of giving her the full $50K, we can offer her half for the wedding. This way, we can cover most of the expenses from our savings, borrow the rest from Sarah if needed, and pay her back within a year. I told her right away that I was not going to do that. I suggested that we could separate our finances and that she could return to work full-time to help Jessica pay for the wedding. However, I made it clear that I was done. As selfish as it may seem, I don't feel obligated to Jessica anymore, and I want to enjoy my life while I still can. She replied, as she always does, that I am stubborn, and she would take that step if it meant keeping the family together. I told her that was fine but not to come to me complaining about her health if she went back to work full-time. A couple of days ago, she came to me and said she agreed with my proposal. We made a plan to open a joint bank account where we would deposit our monthly expenses. After that, we can each use our personal money however we like. We decided on an amount to keep in our savings account for emergencies and agreed to split the remaining funds 50-50. I even agreed to cover 60% of the money needed for our joint expenses. This is the first time we will have more than one bank account, so I'm a bit nervous about how it will turn out. I also believe she mentioned talking to her boss about working more hours, but I want to avoid getting involved in that discussion. I spoke with Sarah and expressed my concerns about giving Jessica any money, as I believe it's a bad idea. However, Sarah insists that she wants to help. She mentioned that while she agrees with my viewpoint, she doesn't want their mom to return to work full-time. She clarified that her decision to help was aimed at supporting their mom, not Jessica. I told her it was her money and she could do as she pleased, but like her mom, I wouldn't involve myself in the situation any further. Right before I wrote this post, I sent an email to Jessica expressing my feelings. I clarified where I stood and mentioned that she could decide how involved I would be in her wedding. I don't expect a reply, but now I'll have to wait and see what happens. Edit. I forgot to mention this in my post, but part of our agreement is that she should not take out any loans with interest. If she decides to borrow money from friends or family, that's her choice, but I want to avoid having another bank loan under my name. However, I am confident that she won't need to borrow much if she only gives $25,000 for the wedding, especially since it appears that Sarah is planning to cover half of that amount, which, again, I still think is a bad idea. Commenter. You know these three are making a mess you'll have to clean up. Ideally, you'd opt out entirely, but $50,000 in debt? This has so much potential to go sideways for you, it's almost a guarantee. For example, since OP isn't involved in this, we can use more than $50,000. What happens if your wife can't work? What if she pays on the loan but can only contribute 10% of the monthly bills? What if she resents you for this? Will you actually stand your ground and divorce? If not, you may as well go to the bank now. Involving Sarah in this is a pretty unfair thing for your wife to do. She seems to believe she has a separate financial life, but that's just not true. That said, I do hope things work out. OP's response. It's not $50,000, I realize now that I didn't explain something clearly. My wife wants to pay $25,000 for the wedding, which she and Sarah have agreed to split. She believes this is a reasonable compromise, but I disagree with her.
Second story. My brother keeps entering my home when we're not around and he's not welcome, and he took our shared little buddy hostage because we refuse to help his freeloading bum any longer. Posted by u/Dwick My brother, Chris, 27M, fake name, moved in with my BF, 28M, and me, 26F, 7 years ago. We took pity on him after he was kicked out of our childhood home for illicit substance use and was sleeping in his car. At first, Chris and my boyfriend got along great. However, after a few years of living together, Chris became more reclusive and distant from us both. Chores were not being done around the house, and I was getting sick of cleaning up after him and dealing with his negative attitude. 6 months before the end of our lease, I told Chris that he had to find another living situation. He finally moved out a few weeks before the lease ended, and I thought we had all agreed on how to split shared appliances and valuables. However, one thing we did not discuss was our shared robot mopping device. We had acquired it a few years ago from my grandmother's house. She was moving and offered it to all three of us since she wouldn't be using it. So, we brought that little robot home. This thing is nothing fancy, just a small device you fill with cleaning solution and attach disposable mop pads to. Let me be clear, in the 4 years we've had this thing, Chris has not once paid for any replacement mop pads. He has never even turned the thing on. It was always my BF or me splitting the cost of the pads and setting it up to run nightly so we'd all wake up to clean floors downstairs. Chris hasn't returned his key because he's still slowly moving his things out. It's been over a month now. He always shows up unannounced to our home to gather boxes and his belongings. Sometimes we don't even realize he's there while we're out. Last night, my BF was looking for our little robot friend because we had just gotten new pads delivered for it. After going crazy looking for it and texting Chris, we found out he had taken it, claiming, "Yeah, he is mine." This was the last straw. We had been so accommodating to this man for years. I just can't believe Chris had the audacity to take our beloved robotic cleaning friend without saying a word. I've let Chris know that we are no longer comfortable with him coming by unannounced. If he needs anything, we will look for it ourselves. I also told him he could return his key to the office, and we would pick it up there. His response? "Stop being weird. I don't want any of your trash crap. I already had all my useful grow equipment stolen anyways. Stop texting me before you make me mad." The grow stuff referred to here is indoor greenhouse and hydroponics equipment, which was verbally agreed to be evenly split, since both Chris and my BF acquired it together. BF has ordered a camera that will arrive tomorrow, and I've contacted the leasing office to make them aware of the animosity between us. I also requested the locks to be changed. I just want to know, am I going too far? This robot is not expensive, but it's more about the principle to me. I feel disrespected. We all have to see each other next week for Thanksgiving, and I know it will be awkward. Update 2 days later. I decided to reach out to my brother and ask him nicely to bring our robot friend to Thanksgiving so we can bring him back home. Here are the messages so far. Me, I've had some time to think about this and gain some different perspectives. I don't believe the robot belongs to you. I'd really appreciate it if you could bring it with you to Thanksgiving so we can bring it back home. I feel as though we've been very accommodating to you over the years you've lived with us, and taking a shared appliance without any discussion is not only disrespectful but also shows a lack of consideration for us. So we'd like our robot back, as it really is ours after years of using and maintaining it without any help from you. Chris, I've had some time to think about it, and I want the TV from Grandma's as well, so go ahead and bring it over when you get a chance, thanks. Me, the TV was also given to us specifically. I'm not sure why you think that's yours as well. Chris, everything was given to you, apparently. She asked me if I wanted the robot while I was in the kitchen, and I said yes. That's how it went, end of story. I don't give two craps about what you think is yours or not. If I let you borrow something because I'm not using it, that doesn't make it yours. Me, as I remember it, we were all there when she offered. I even tried to decline since it was still useful, but she insisted. It was given to all of us as a shared household item. If you thought it was yours, you should have had a discussion with us first before taking it while we were out. Chris, you remember wrong, and I don't need to have a discussion about my own things. Not to mention BF moving shady, taking stuff out of the tent while I was gone, thinking I wouldn't notice. Lol, how is that any different? I didn't bring it up because I'm a bigger person and don't really care anymore. I want to put this terrible part of my life behind me, and if you don't leave it be, I'm going to leave you behind as well. Me, you and BF had a discussion about splitting up the gross stuff, which he thought went amicably. You aren't being very mature, and I don't want someone in my life who can't have a simple conversation about shared items anyway. So I guess that's it. It looks like we will not be getting our little friend back. Thank you all for your support and for interacting with this post. Second update 10 days later. Hello again. I just wanted to start by saying thank you all for your judgments on my last post. I read every comment and gave each perspective some thought. Ultimately, you all helped me gain the confidence to stand up for myself and ask for our robot back. I included my text conversation with my brother Chris in the comments of my last post. To summarize, I asked as politely as I could for our mopping robot back and explained the reasons why it belonged to us. Chris refused to see reason and essentially said he would cut me out of his life if I kept bringing it up. My wonderful BF couldn't sit back and let him be disrespectful to us anymore. He had his own conversation with Chris, which, for privacy reasons, cannot be shared. BF ended up taking some of your advice and threatened to reveal specific information to our family if the robot was not returned by Thanksgiving. This was last Thursday, so Chris had 1 week to make a decision. After a quiet week, I was preparing myself to drop a bomb at family dinner. But then, I went out to start warming up my car Wednesday night and found a box on my front step. I hadn't ordered anything, and when I picked up the box, I noticed it wasn't sealed. Guys, our robot friend found his way home. I guess Chris decided that a mopping robot wasn't worth ruining his reputation with our family. He will not be bothering us anymore, and we will be going low/no contact from now on. Now, a positive from all this drama. BF and I are utilizing our new home monitoring cameras to watch our pets. Our dogs and cats' activities while home alone are so entertaining, it's brought us a lot of joy to check in on them. A family photo of the pets and robot will be posted in the comments. Have a great holiday season, everyone.